Man, don't you hate when you try to pin something on the President of the United States of America, but it blows up and backfires right in your liberal face? Well, you may not have a liberal face, so you may not have that problem. Hey, what's up? This is Mark K. Saves the Republic. I'm so glad that you're joining me. I'm so glad you're here, man, because saving the Republic you know what? It's better. It's a team sport. It's really a team sport. What happens is, why is my subscribe button? Oh, there we go. It's a team sport and it requires a lot of people. I could try to do it on my own, but it really isn't. You know, I'm one among many. It requires people from all walks of life in every state and every situation. It requires people all over the world working together to defeat liberalism and ridiculousness and all the other stuff that's really, I mean, it is terminal at this point. And the problem is, we have a lot of problems, but the big problem, one of the big problems is that the things we're starting to see, the corruption in the Democrat Party, it's not just in the Democrat Party. That deep state, that swamp, it still exists. And there are Democrats and Republicans who work every single day in tandem, hand in hand, arm in arm. They probably have picnics together and ride tandem bicycles around the streets of DC because they're safe again because of President Donald Trump. And so now what we see is we start to see as the Democrats begin to peel back the layers of the Epstein files, we begin to see that it's backfiring and it's causing them more anger and angst. More anger and angst. Pardon me, I forgot my hat. More anger and angst than if they had just left well enough alone. Why? Well, because as we said, the Democrats are never, ever, 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 ever innocent. If a Republican is being accused of something, it's because the Democrats have already done it. If the Republicans are being accused of something, it's because the Democrats are trying to deflect from the things that they've done already. It happened with Russia collusion. It happened with impeachment. It happened with all of these things. And what we're starting to see now, or what we've been seeing, but now we're starting to see again with Epstein, is that the Democrats are hobbling themselves. The left has basically decided, hey, we're going to go after Donald Trump. We're going to force these Epstein files to come out. But oops, guess what? Our own people are going to suffer. And it's not necessarily that their own people are pedophiles, although I'm sure there are some of those. It's that they've all done the same thing, which is use Jeffrey Epstein to better themselves. And one of them is Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader in the minority leader in the House of Representatives. Listen to this. Is a clip that popped up yesterday. It was James Comer from Kentucky, who's on the Oversight Committee. I saw just about everybody posting this clip, but James Comer revealed that Hakeem Jeffries basically partied with Jeffrey Epstein, who was this horrible person, so he could get money.
Colleagues' coordination with Epstein. Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch. The files underscore why former President Trump must appear for his deposition. We've subpoenaed him. To date, the Democrats have done nothing to help us secure his appearance. I support full transparency. The Oversight Committee will continue to work to get the truth to the American people and to get justice for the victims. That's our goal of this investigation. With that, I yield back.
Yeah, with that, I yield back.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we reserve.
Yeah, it's happening over and over again. The other thing we've noticed is this thing going on with Stacey Plaskett. Have you heard of Stacey Plaskett? Stacey Plaskett is really one of these bizarre people. Basically, Stacey Plaskett she can't vote. She's from the Virgin Islands, but the Virgin Islands, and I don't really understand, it's kind of like the way DC did with Corinne Brown, but the Virgin Islands, they get their own representative in Congress. She can't vote, but she can sit on chairs. Well, we can all sit on chairs. Jerry Nadler has trouble sitting on chairs. Sometimes he sits on a chair, the chair just disappears. But basically what happens is Stacey Plaskett, she's the ranking member on a couple of committees, and she was found, now we've found basically that she has been texting back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I know what you're thinking. A lot of Democrats text back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein. That's true. But she was actually texting back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein while she was in a hearing regarding Michael Cohen. You remember Michael Cohen, the rat The rat, he was called up in front of Congress, in front of the Oversight Committee, and Stacey Plaskett, who was the ranking member, was cross-examining or was questioning Michael Cohen. And she was on her phone with Jeffrey Epstein, who was giving her information and feeding her lines and telling her what to say and how to, get Trump. And Stacey Plaskett had no problem with it. Neither did Hakeem Jeffries.
For being here, obviously a lot of movement up on Capitol Hill today. And you heard Stacey Plaskett there. She was arguing her texts with Jeffrey Epstein were not illegal. But in your view, were they appropriate?
Well, Stacey Plaskett is not accused of violating any House rule, any law, any statute. And she's clearly and unequivocally denounced Jeffrey Epstein. And I think what the survivors fought for today is the type of transparency that came out of the House, went through the Senate, and is now on its way to Donald Trump's desk, where hopefully he'll sign it into law, because at the end of the day, all the American people are asking for is just the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is why these Epstein files that Donald Trump and his administration has been hiding for months need to be released.
But do you think it was appropriate for her to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein 11 years after he pleaded guilty?
I have not had a conversation with Stacey Plaskett to discuss this issue, because we've been focused today on making sure that there was a decisive vote as it related to the Epstein files and the release. I'm thankful for the work of Representative Massey, of Ro Khanna, but most importantly, the survivors.
Do you plan to talk to her about it?
I think that we successfully defeated a resolution that lacked any basis, was not credible, and was being brought by an individual who was trying to weaponize this issue to reinvigorate his own failed gubernatorial campaign in South Carolina. It was rejected on a bipartisan basis on the floor today. That's the end of the story.
Yeah, I was just asking if you personally believe messaging with Jeffrey Epstein, who was at that point a registered.
Yeah, he was a registered sex offender at that point. He's refusing to answer the question. He can't say whether he believes it or not. And the reason is because, well, he probably thought it was perfectly fine. Let's be honest. If Hakeem Jeffries is not going to denounce one of his own Congress people, one of his own Democrats, if he's not going to go to her and say, look, what are you doing? Why were you texting Epstein? Can't you think for yourself? Aren't you a lawyer of some kind? If Hakeem Jeffries can't even do that, if he refuses, it's because, well, let's be honest, he himself was fundraising off of the Epstein mess. He was hobnobbing with Jeffrey Epstein to get cash into his political coffers. Of course he doesn't think that it's wrong. Stacey Plaskett herself was trying to explain why she was getting advice from Jeffrey Epstein during the Michael Cohen hearing.
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information, and I was going to get information to get at the truth. Having a friendship with him is not something that I would deem to have. And so I'm just looking forward. I'm moving forward. And I think that that's what we as American people should do, is move forward. If individuals are not involved in illegal activity, extending his criminal enterprise or his financial enterprise or all of those things, I think that we need to look at what people are doing moving forward.
Wait, let me just better understand that. What is that point? Because at the time he was a known sex offender and it had been detailed all the sexual abuse.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes, and as a prosecutor, you get information from people where you can.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes. Yeah, especially in the Democrat Party. Especially on the left. Yeah, there's a lot of people. Wait a minute. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, because you're saying that you talked to Jeffrey Epstein to get information, but you understand he was at this point already an accused sexual predator and pedophile. There's a lot of people, Caitlin, or there are a lot of people, CNN, who commit a lot of crimes, which, by the way, when did CNN wake up and decide to do some journalism? When did CNN, did they get their latest ratings and they realize that, this left-wing pablum that they've been pushing, nobody's eating anymore? Nobody's consuming that. That's no longer what people want. Is that what it is? Did they finally wake up and smell the red states? It's really, I'm going to be honest with you, kind of fun to watch. She was censured on the floor of the House. The censure, which again, the censure you would think, I mean, maybe you wouldn't. You would think this would be like a slam dunk. You would think this would be a slam dunk. Jeffrey Epstein, convicted pedophile, texting with the ranking member of the Oversight Committee during the hearing with Michael Cohen, him giving her directions and her following them blindly. Like, it's almost like Michael Cohen was being cross-examined by Jeffrey Epstein. The text messages were to invoke ways to harm President Donald Trump, or to get Michael Cohen to say things that would harm President Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff. And so what happens in the end is the Republicans come forward and say, we should censure this woman. And she, of course, has a conniption fit.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida seek recognition?
I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Wait a minute. That's not, hold on. That's not the right clip. It's, where was it? Oh, here it is. Listen carefully.
Mr. Raskin, to my former professor in law school, and I want to address the body. I first want to give you all a sense of what was happening that day. Everyone knows at that hearing in February, the entire country was watching. As Michael Cohen decided he was going to finally give up information about what was happening in the Trump world, the Trump enterprise. And at the beginning of that hearing, the ranking member, Jim Jordan, had the disrespect to Elijah Cummings, may he rest in peace and his name be a memory, after not allowing Mr. Jordan to shut the committee hearing down. And I turned to Mr. Jordan and told him to have respect for the chair and to basically shut up. And that moment went viral. And I began to get innumerable texts from friends, from foes, from constituents about what was happening in that hearing. And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time that he was under federal investigation, and who was sharing information with me.
So she admits that she gets a text message from Jeffrey Epstein. She admits that he's sharing information about President Donald Trump, about Michael Cohen, about their relationship, anything that he thinks could be harmful to the president at that point, or could help Michael Cohen, or could maybe help himself. Who knows? Let's be honest. When you're Jeffrey Epstein, everything you do is basically for self-preservation. And she takes the text messages and she says, he was just my constituent from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Is that where Epstein Island was? I'm not really sure. I got to find it on the map again. But is that what is he one of her constituents? Because his secret sleazy island was in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's really kind of a. Also, I text my congressman all the time. He never, which we'll get to him here in just a minute. But I digress.
Now, I heard recently from someone that I was seeking advice from him. Let me tell you something. I don't need to get advice on how to question anybody from any individual. I have been a lawyer for 30 years. I have been a narcotics prosecutor in New York City. I have had the honor of being a political appointee at the Justice Department after September 11th as a Republican appointee in the Bush administration. I know how to question individuals. I know how to seek information. I have sought information from confidential informants, from murderers, from other individuals, because I want the truth.
Yeah, but do those other individuals, those murderers, are they texting her in the middle of are they sending her texts when she's in a House committee meeting, cross-examining a Trump attorney? Is that when they have whistleblowers, is she talking to murderers on her text message? I don't know if that's, I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that probably what should have happened is she should have been censured. But guess what? Guess what happened? The Republican-controlled House did not censure
that we've got a sitting member, in this case the delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands, who was sitting in the Oversight Committee. And I'm actually a particular interest here because I was the one doing the questioning. Apparently my questioning was so riveting that she was engaging in text messages back and forth at that moment. While I was questioning Mr. Cohen, the gentlelady was engaging in this back and forth on text messages with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, again, I've listened now for months. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, disparage and try to impugn the character of the President of the United States and other members of the administration in connection to an investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, which the President, his administration in 2019, they indicted Epstein. They actually moved forward and federally indicted him in 2019. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested by the Trump administration. And I know the gentleman from Maryland will go on to say that the Biden administration then carry forward that arrest and indictment into prosecution. True. But it was, in fact, the Trump administration that did what had not been done for a long period of time by taking forward that indictment. So I've been listening to all of the preaching by my friends on the other side of the aisle about how any association, anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein is somehow the dispositive moment here in terms of determining the character of this administration or what they're doing or not doing when they're leaning in to try to seek the truth.
And basically, well, hold on, I'll let him finish.
Where tens of thousands of pages have been released by Jamie Comer and 13 subpoenas has all been put out. So now the House just voted to have greater transparency. Time will tell what that means in terms of what the court does and how.
Yeah, anyway. So basically what he's saying is the Democrats for years have been preaching that any association with Jeffrey Epstein is bad. Any association with Jeffrey Epstein is criminal. Any association with Jeffrey Epstein deserves political retribution. And every single ounce of the law, every government agency, every ounce of power you have to wield and force some kind of resolution upon your political opponent should be used. That's why they brought up the Donald Trump birthday card with the naked lady and the boobies. Remember that? Remember the booby birthday card that Donald Trump supposedly wrote and drew to Jeffrey Epstein? And Donald Trump said, I don't draw. That's not even me. We had to cross-reference the signature. Donald Trump goes, that's not how I draw boobies. I draw boobies totally different. But that was it. Just having a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein was enough to string up President Donald Trump, impeach him, and throw him away and lock him up and throw away the key. That's what the Democrats wanted you to believe back then. The second part of that, of course, was Donald Trump having Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. Let's not forget the point that he revoked his membership and kicked him out when he found that he was using Mar-a-Lago to try to find young women to traffic. Donald Trump found out what was going on. He didn't like Jeffrey Epstein being there. He said, leave. He probably kept his deposit, but that's okay. Revoked his membership and he was gone. A massive falling out, a well-documented falling out, multiple witnesses, and of course, again, something that the Democrats believe makes Donald Trump guilty of terrible things. Photographs at parties. Donald Trump, a New York billionaire, and Jeffrey Epstein, a New York billionaire, would find themselves occasionally at the same billionaire soiree. No shocker there. Somebody would snap a photo, it would wind up in the papers, and now all of a sudden Donald Trump had to have been some kind of criminal. But when it's the Democrats, it's a totally different story, isn't it? Oh, Stacey Plaskett was texting with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein while she was investigating Donald Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen. That's nothing. But if she had sent him a birthday card with hand-drawn boobies on it, totally different. Then you got to censure her. You've got Stacey Plaskett getting information from a convict so that she can try to pin something on President Donald Trump that he never did, that wasn't illegal, that there was no proof of. That's perfectly acceptable, and it's not against the law, and it's well within her purview as the member of the Oversight Committee. But if you take a picture with a guy at a billionaire party in New York City, clearly you're in cahoots. Jamie Raskin, by the way, this guy's the worst. Jamie Raskin just gets progressively worse as the time goes on. And look, he had a near-death experience. I know he had cancer. I know he wore the do-rag. I know that he's better now, I assume. I guess physically he's better. Mentally, he's totally shot. He makes it real hard to feel bad for the guy when he says dumb stuff like this about Stacey Plaskett.
Well, they want to give them another headline, which is that they've arraigned a Democratic member for taking a phone call from her constituent, Jeffrey Epstein, in the middle of a hearing, and of course, I don't think there's any rule here against taking phone calls in a hearing. Well, they want to give them.
I thought it was a text message. He says it's a phone call. Either way, he's boiling it down to she took a phone call from a constituent. Yeah. Try to get your congressman on the phone during a hearing. Try to get your congressman on the phone anytime. I've called my congressman. In fact, I almost called him again today because the corruption in Washington, D.C. is just so bad. But I've called my congressman a couple times. I've sent him an email, never got a direct response back. I got canned messages. I got canned emails. I had members of his office staff write me back or send me responses that sound like they were written from ChatGPT. I've seen all of those. But what I haven't ever done was gotten him on the phone. That's not true. I did get him on the phone once on the show, and well, he'll regret that phone conversation for the rest of his life, I'm sure. But basically what's happening here, what's happening with Jamie Raskin, what's happening with the Democrats is they're trying to pin this as an innocent conversation with a constituent. But that's not at all what it was. It was a direct line from Jeffrey Epstein to the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee during a tumultuous investigation into President Donald Trump's fixer, his lawyer, Michael Cohen. That's what this was. That's what this is. That's all it ever was. That's all it's ever going to be. And that's why she was almost censured. But in true Republican fashion, she was not censured. In true Republican fashion, they lost by one. There were a handful of representatives who voted. And I'm going to go, because people always ask me, where do you find all this information? I'm going to show you. I'm going to go right to the source. There is a website, the Office of the Clerk of the U.S. House of Representatives. And if you go there, you can go to any vote. And you can see this is H.R. 888, which is censuring and condemning Delegate Stacey Plaskett and removing her from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence for conduct that reflects discreditably on the House of Representatives for colluding with convicted felony sex offender Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing. So this is the bill. And as you can see here, it failed. And as you can see here, the yays were 209, the nays were 214, the presents were 3, and the non-voting was 7. So basically, it came down to about one vote. If you look at it, if you look at the nay, you got 3 Republicans here that voted nay, and you're probably wondering yourself, why on earth would any Republican vote nay? Why on earth would any Republican not vote? Why on earth would any Republican not be there? Look at this. First of all, you've got the nay votes. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. This is all states. First of all, you've got the nay votes. You got Bacon, Gooden, and Joyce from Ohio. Now, some of these are not at all a shock. Then you have the present votes. Garbarino, Musser, and Obernolte. These 3 votes from New York, Pennsylvania, and California, these are not yay votes, which means they are basically nay votes. But by voting present, you're not voting either way, and you're trying to not make a stand. However, in this particular situation, a present vote just turns out to be another nay vote. And so there you got 3, those are your 3, these are your 3 presents, your 3 nays, that's 6 votes. And then this is the most troubling, the not voting. Because if you look here, you've got Kelly from Mississippi, Ruley, Womack, and John Rutherford from Florida, the 5th Congressional District. John Rutherford did not vote. And a lot of people are wondering, well, was he busy? Did he have a toothache? Was he on the toilet? Did he fly home because, the weather got warmer in Florida? What was the reason that John Rutherford wasn't there? The reason was there was a backroom deal that was put together because another Republican, or I guess another congressman, this time a Republican, is facing similar ethical violations. Guy by the name of Corey Mills. And for whatever reason, a handful of Republicans decided that they wanted to save Corey Mills, so they made a deal. We will not censure Stacey Plaskett, and there will be no censure vote for Corey Mills. That's the backroom deal that we believe happened. And we believe that because, well, a couple of people have told us that. One of them is Tim Burchett. Congressman Sling Blade from Tennessee, who after the vote last night went out and did one of his famous, famous recordings where he told everybody exactly what was going on, and it's just as bad as you might expect.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett, late vote series to censor Delegate Stacey Plaskett. She's the one that was received a sizable contribution from Epstein, which apparently is legal, I'm not sure, but she also is the one who was texting with him during a committee hearing, getting instructions on how to better attack Trump from Epstein, sending her the text. And so she's on some pretty powerful committees, and that just tells you how corrupt this place is. But the disgusting thing about it was 4 Republicans chose not to vote. 3 Republicans voted present, and 3 Republicans voted no. So it failed. And what they did was they cut a deal. They cut a deal on an ethics vote on a Republican. And that's just wrong. If everybody ought to just stand on their own. If it were truly, we don't care whose party these sex offenders and all this other stuff are in, we're going after them, then we start cutting deals. To me, it's really disgusting. I get disgusted about some things, but this is one that's really, really bad. You've got some people on there who are chairmen of committees and things like that. And that's the kind of people we put in leadership. It's bogus and it stinks. And the first opportunity I get to speak to our leadership, I will give them a piece of my mind, and I doubt it will go anywhere. But they're the most sewer-dwelling people, some of these folks, not all of them, but some of them are. It's just disgusting. It really is. Anyway, still, thank y'all for sending me here. We got to keep fighting. We quit, and we lose the whole deal. Remember Reagan said we're one generation away from losing our country. Folks, we're one vote series away from losing our country. We got to wake up. God's given us an incredible gift, and we're just blowing it. It won't be around for everybody says for their grandkids. Dadgum, it might not be around for your kids. It might not make it to the end of the year. Let's take our country back, folks. Thank y'all for sitting here.
Tim Burchett, very distressed by the Republicans that messed up the vote, the censure on Stacey Plaskett. And they did it all because, as you pointed out right there, as he pointed out, a backroom deal. And he said there were 3 Republicans who voted nay. There were 3 Republicans who voted present. And the most disgusting thing is you had these 3 Republicans who were not voting. And that is really where the problem lies, because when you have, or 4 Republicans, that did not vote, and one of them was John Rutherford. Now, John Rutherford, as you may know, by the way, that noise behind him, a lot of people, it's not a Disney ride. He's not at like Space Mountain. There's a tram. There's a train inside the Capitol building because the offices are far away from the Capitol building. And because half of Congress is over the age of 75, they don't like to walk. So they have this train, and the train takes you from the offices to the Capitol building. It shuttles you back and forth, basically back and forth. And that's what you heard there. You heard that train, and it's kind of cool. It's for members only. It's not like for the public. It's not like the subway or the metro where you can just, scan your phone and get on there. No, it's all very private because there's, Congress has to have their own subway system. They can't use the regular subway system that the people use. They have to have their own ones. But look, everybody knows the worst part about this is that everybody knew about this. This was not even a backroom deal that was hidden from view. John Rutherford sits on the ethics committee, and the ethics committee is one that you don't often hear about, but has a lot of power. Why? Well, because if you're brought up with an ethics committee violation, it goes through the ethics committee. If you're faced with any kind of fine or any kind of, a potential problem that could lead to you being kicked out or censured or whatnot, it goes through the ethics committee. And the ethics committee will report. And the reports on the ethics committee will usually sway the opinion. For example, if an ethics committee report comes out favorably for a congressperson, typically there will be no action taken for whatever ethics violation that committee or that Congress member may have committed, allegedly. However, if an ethics report comes out and it's damaging and the ethics committee finds they're a horrible person and the ethics committee says this person does not deserve to be in Congress, they do not deserve to sit on this committee, they do not deserve to live. If the ethics committee comes out with a damaging report, odds are there will be action taken against or toward that congressperson. That's the other part of this thing. So the ethics committee does have a lot of power. You would think that something called the ethics committee, you would think that they would do the ethical thing in all instances. But the opposite tends to be true. The ethics committee, of which John Rutherford is a member, a longtime member, typically uses it for their own political purposes. John Rutherford, for example, who did not vote to censure Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat. And I want you to think about this. I have a lot of people that listen in this district. A lot of people know that I'm running against John Rutherford in the primary. This is the reason why. People always ask me, they go, it's so funny because a lot of this stuff doesn't come out to the public. But people always ask me, they go, what do you got against John Rutherford? He's a good guy. And I go, he may be a good guy, but he's a horrible congressman. And let's be honest, he may not even be that good a guy. But this is exactly the kind of evidence that people need to know about when it comes to their congressman. Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat, is texting with convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing. She's not just texting with a constituent. He has a main line to her. Also, fun fact, he gave her lots and lots of money for his campaign. So it's not even that he's a constituent. It's that he bought and paid for her to be there. And now he's got a direct line to her while she's doing her job in an oversight committee meeting. So Stacey Plaskett probably should have been censured. The majority of Republicans thought to censure her, but wouldn't you know it, John Rutherford, who sits on the ethics committee and who for whatever reason was working a backroom deal to save Corey Mills, who's also facing ethics violations, who's also from Florida. Maybe they've got a Florida man pact going on, who knows. He used whatever he could, which was his ability to skip a vote, to not vote, just not show up. I mean, I want you to think about how that's almost worse than voting no, isn't it? That's really the pansy way. When they're thinking about it and they're going out, they're like, look, we need 3 people to vote no. We need 3 people to vote present. We need a bunch of y'all just not to show up but we need enough that we have, the mandatory minimum, but we don't have, it's not too, and it would just like 4 people don't show up. And John Rutherford goes, I'll do that. I'll just not show up. I'll just not take a stand either way. Pretend that I had something else to do. Your job is to go to Congress and vote. That's literally your whole job. Your job as a congressman is to go in and vote yay for the good bills and nay for the bad bills. Yay for the good bills, nay for the bad bills. Fun fact, spoiler alert, censuring a congresswoman who was going back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein on her phone during a congressional committee meeting, who also got a lot of money donated to her by Jeffrey Epstein. That, my friends, that is an automatic yay for censure. Yay for censure. Censuring her is a good bill. You want to vote yay for it. John Rutherford did not. He got it wrong. He does that a lot. And unless he's changed out, unless he's flip-flopped, unless we figure out who to put in his place, he's going to continue to do it. And that's why I'm running literally to primary him. That's just one of many times when he's screwed over his constituency and he's voted against the Republican Party. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time that the Republicans in general have done this. They did it as well with Ilhan Omar. Remember, Ilhan Omar was not censured? That is the weirdest thing ever. Anna Paulina Luna, who's also from Florida, by the way, she was not happy at all. She was not happy with the leadership. She was not happy with Speaker Johnson. She was not happy with the Republican Party. She was not happy with the way the censure vote went. And she stood up and made her displeasure known.
Mr. Raskin, to my former professor
Hang on,
in law school.
Here it is.
And I want to...
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida seek recognition?
I have a parliamentary inquiry.
The gentlelady from Florida will state her inquiry.
I was wondering if the Speaker of the House of Representatives can explain why leadership on both sides, both Democrat and Republican, are cutting back-end deals to cover up public corruption in the House of Representatives from both Republican and Democrat members of Congress.
The gentlelady has not stated a proper parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you very much, but I think the American people know what happened tonight.
Yeah, all she wanted was to get it on the record. All she wanted was to get it on the record, and she did. And that was exactly the point. Kat Kamek posted something earlier. I think, was it on Facebook? Basically along the same thing. And here's the thing. You're really going to see. What
purpose does the gentlelady from Florida see?
Hang on. You're really going to start seeing who's on which side. And there are good Republicans. There are good conservatives. And they're typically the people that A, want term limits, B, don't want congressional stock trading. That's not something that the good Republicans really want. And also, here we go. Here it is right here. I'm gonna pull this up. This was Kat Kamek on X, I guess. Here. She wrote, tonight, a handful of Republicans took a dive, which is a great way to describe it, on a vote to strip Stacey Plaskett of her position on House Intel because of her ties to Epstein. They did it to protect a Republican facing his own ethics issues from a similar vote. This backroom deal. Oh, she used the wordy dirt. Okay. She's from, Florida's 3rd district. They talk like that there. This backroom deal bleep is swampy, wrong, and always deserves to be called out. And she's 100% right. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you violated your ethical duties, if you violated your oath of office, if you did something that the ethics committee could deem to be unethical and that you maybe should be called into account for, then guess what? You should be called into account for it. And there's nobody that should protect you. But that's not the way it works in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., there are people who will do whatever it does. They will sacrifice themselves. They will bend over backwards. They will cut deals. They will scratch your back. You scratch theirs. They will do all of that stuff because, unfortunately, that's how Washington still works. And there are people like Tim Burchett who are not happy about it. There are people like Anna Paulina Luna who are not happy about it. There are people like Kat Kamek who are not happy about it. There are people like me who aren't even in Congress yet and aren't happy about it. And all of us who aren't happy about it, we have to do exactly what Tim Burchett said. We have to keep fighting. We have to fight, so that we can continue to save this republic. And saving the republic means draining the swamp. Although Tim Burchett was in a, where was it? He was in a, where was this? He did another press conference. Hang on, was this?
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett out here in front of House Administration. My buddy Brian Stiles getting ready to hold the committee meeting on the insider stock trading. And I woke up this morning ticked off. I went to bed ticked off. And I'm going to light it up. So get ready. I hope y'all get to see at least part of it.
Okay, that was him talking about how ticked off he is. Here's the actual, I think this is the actual, he made a really good point about the swamp, which I think is fair. And let me play you this because this is what he said at the press conference.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Brian. Somebody asked me if I was going to wear my jacket up there, and I said, to quote the immortal words of Henry Winkler when he played the Fonz, I always rumble in this jacket, because that's what we're up against. This is a fist fight, folks. Now, first, I guess I need to thank Chairman Stiles and the committee, the House Admin Administration Committee, for taking this up, because I realize what we're up against. This is, everybody talks about this place being a dadgum swamp. It's not a swamp. A swamp is something cool God created. It filters water. Animal life lives and flourishes around it. This is a sewer.
Oh man, look at that! Isn't that great? He goes, look at that. A swamp is something cool God created. This is a sewer.
Animal life lives and flourishes around it. This is a sewer. This is created by man, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, that's a great point. He's talking about all kinds of different things. So he's talking about stock trading in that particular instance, but it all boils down to the same stuff. It's not a swamp. It's a sewer. It's man-made, a man-made sewer, a pit of degradation and slime and excrement where there's festering and fecal matter. It's all just gross is what it is. And we've got to do everything we can to stop it. We've got to do everything we can to stop this continuation of evil and corruption in Washington, D.C. And that's what it's all about. And these Epstein files, like I said, they're backfiring on a lot of people in a lot of different ways. What we saw, first of all, was that when the Epstein files were released and Congress started to go through them, the Democrats, instead of ostracizing Jeffrey Epstein, kicking him to the curb and saying, we don't want anything to do with you, instead of that, what they did was they embraced him and used him to raise money. Not only did they use him to raise money, they took his money. Stacey Plaskett got money from Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump actually mentioned that in one of his, he was torching one of those ABC reporters, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The second part of that is when they go to censure her, Republicans have this blow up in their face because now we see who's really cutting those backroom deals. Now we see who's really going around and using their positions of power for their own personal gain. And that's something, again, that is blowing up in everybody's face. So this Epstein mess, I don't think it's going to go away as Donald Trump thinks maybe it'll go away. Donald Trump said again, we need to move on from this. In fact, there was this reporter, we watched this live yesterday, but I'm going to play it again because it's just so great. I just love it. Donald Trump torched this ABC News reporter, I forget her name, but she was asking rude questions. She was asking about Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump laid into her again and said, look, the real problem with Jeffrey Epstein is it's all Democrats. Democrats were friends with him. Democrats were on his plane. Democrats went to his island. Democrats took his money. Democrats. Why do you keep throwing me up in the joint?
Is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. You're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton. Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me, but he gave money to Democrats. And people are wise to your hoax, and ABC's, your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something,
So why not just sign it now?
I think the license should be taken away from ABC.
Yeah, and then he goes into threatening their license again, which is one of his favorite things to do. But look, the fact of the matter is, he's right. He never took money from Jeffrey Epstein. The Democrats did. He took zero money from Jeffrey Epstein, but all the Democrats did. He had absolutely nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein except that he kicked him out of his club. But it was the Democrats who did. And now we're starting to see all the repercussions as these files start getting opened up. And we're starting to see all of the things that are happening as President Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress start to delve through the papers. And what I fear is going to happen is not that, Donald Trump's wish, his like Christmas wish, if you will, his one big desire was for this vote to pass, it to go to the Senate, it to come to his desk. He would then sign the order, he would send it off, and then it would be done with. But the opposite's true. What's going to happen is now that these files are going to be made public, you're going to have people, you're going to have these online sleuths, you're going to have these conservative reporters, you're going to have people everywhere, and they're going to be digging and delving, and they're going to be trying to find other stuff, and they're going to be doing their reporting, quote unquote, and it's going to be never ending. And every little line and every little name and every redaction is going to be questioned forever. And a lot of people are going to be doing it for the right reasons in the name of the victims. And we know that the victims do need justice. Jeffrey Epstein was a terrible person, and he can't get away with these crimes. There are going to be people that are doing it because they're deranged and they're convinced that President Donald Trump is a bad person. And there's evidence in those files somewhere that they want to find. There may be other politicians who are brought down, and I assume there will be, by all of these. In fact, Larry Summers from Harvard had to mention at the beginning of his class, this is crazy. He is a Harvard professor. And Larry Summers, at the beginning of his class yesterday, somebody posted this on, I think it was TikTok, he had to address being in the Epstein files during it. Listen to this. Imagine you're at Harvard. Imagine you're in college and you walk in and your teacher says, hey, before we start class today, let me talk to you about how I showed up in these documents regarding a pedophile.
Some of you will have seen my statement of regret, expressing my shame with respect to what I did in communication with Mr. Epstein, and that I've said that I'm going to step back from public activities for a time, but I think it's very important to fulfill my teaching obligations. And so, with your permission, we're going to go forward and talk about the material in the class.
All right, so Larry Summers says, so I said I'm going to pull back from my public appearances because, I'm about to get railroaded by Congress and probably a bunch of lawyers regarding my relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That's all about to happen. But I thought it was important to still teach. That's your professor. Yeah, listen, I'm removing myself from public life, but I still want to teach you stuff. So I'm here today, and hopefully we can push all that aside, and hopefully you can ignore the fact that I ran around with a convicted pedophile, and that I'm in the Jeffrey Epstein files, and that the president of the United States was just talking about me, and that there's documents showing that I'm a terrible person. I could be criminally charged. You can try to withdraw from public life all you want to, but if you're getting charged by the Department of Justice, you're not going to be able to withdraw from public life. If you're getting charged by the DOJ, if you're getting is sued, if there's some kind of, massive court case against you, the withdrawing from public life is an impossibility. He's going to be dragged kicking and screaming right into the forefront by Democrats, by Republicans, by the media, by everybody. But yet he still feels it's important to teach. So he's going to continue. I think everybody in that class probably should just get an A. That's one of those, I don't know. There was like an old wives' tale, or maybe it was like an urban legend. You remember I think there was even a movie about it where the rumor was that if your roommate died when you were in college, which is, again, this is, I don't know if this is true or not, but the rumor was if your roommate died while you were in college, overdosed or committed suicide or got hit by a bus, whatever it was, you got automatically straight A's. And I think there was a movie, if not, there should have been, about a college kid who murders their roommate because they're failing in class. Maybe I'm thinking of Killer of Serial Mom. It doesn't matter. Anyway, there's some kind of plot line about that. And I think the interesting thing to realize here is that these kids now could claim, they could go to the bursar or the administration or whatever, the president, and they could claim that they're under serious physical or not physical, but personal strain because they have to sit in a classroom with their teacher who is, that's what I would do. I'd be like, I probably wouldn't feel a thing, but I would definitely milk it. If you're a Harvard kid and you're in class with Larry Summers and he continues to teach, I would make a beeline. I would send an email to the upper echelons of the university and I would say, I do not feel like I can personally and mentally can contain myself and concentrate on the material. I'm afraid this will adversely affect my ability to learn and therefore my grade point average and my career. I did not sign up to come to Harvard to be in a class with somebody who could be a potential pedophile. I didn't want any of that. So I either need my money back or I need an A. And I imagine they would probably give you the A because Harvard, they want as much money. They've already lost a lot of money from President Donald Trump. They want as much money as they could probably get. But that's what's happening. It's the beginning, not the end. And more people are going to suffer the consequences of Stacey Plaskett, who I guess didn't really suffer because the censure passed. It didn't pass. Suffer the consequences of Hakeem Jeffries, who hopefully we will be reminded in 2026. Hopefully we will be reminded that Hakeem Jeffries fundraised off of his relationship with or his meet and greet with Jeffrey Epstein. And there'll be a change in leadership, or at least, a change in that position in the House of Representatives. Now, there is good news, of course. Donald Trump, yesterday, he had the Saudi crown prince there, and it was, while a lot of people were upset that he appeared, Donald Trump was heralding it as yet another victory, as was Stephen Miller, Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who had this to say.
If you were another country in the world, what do you...
No, but that is not Stephen Miller. That is, of course, Scott Bessent. This is Stephen Miller.
It was a magnificent evening, Sean, a magnificent day. Look, this comes fresh off the heels of President Trump brokering a peace deal that nobody thought was possible between Israel and Gaza, securing the release of all remaining living hostages, as well as returning now almost all of the remains of those tragically lost. This was about securing a future of security and peace for the region and for the world. And today, President Trump continued in historic fashion the process he began in 2017 of uniting the world against extremism, against terrorism, against instability, against violence, and forming partnerships around prosperity, investment, peace, cooperation, and against radicalism. And so as part of today, so when President Trump was in the Middle East recently in Saudi Arabia, he brought $600 billion of investment home. Today, the kingdom raised that amount to $1 trillion. And as President Trump said, including in his remarks tonight at the dinner, that means more than anything else, jobs for Americans. This is the jobs president, Sean.
And when you look at it, all this foreign investment means jobs. Anytime there's foreign investment, it means...
It was a magnificent evening, Sean.
Anytime there's foreign investment, that means that there's going to be factories built. There's going to be people that need to maintain those factories. There's going to be people that need to work in those factories. There's going to be people that have to drive the trucks with whatever they're building in those factories to the places where they're being distributed. It's jobs, jobs, jobs. So $1 trillion in investment from Saudi Arabia isn't just, people are, it's not just going to the government. It's not just going to Donald Trump's pocket. It's not just building another ballroom. It's going back into the United States' economy, and that means better everything for everybody. Speaking of the ballroom, by the way, and also Stephen Miller, and everyone was in a tux last night. If you saw the clip, there was that clip, and then there was, of course, the clip I played accidentally of Scott Bessent. They were all in tuxedos because of the state dinner for Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, you know who else was there? Cristiano Ronaldo was there. Cristiano Ronaldo, and Donald Trump was, or Barron Trump rather, was thrilled to see him.
This room is loaded up with the biggest leaders in the world, business, sports. My son is a big fan of Ronaldo, wherever Ronaldo is here. Ronaldo. And Barron got to meet him, and I think he respects his father a little bit more now, just the fact that I introduced you. So I just want to thank you both for being here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so Ronaldo shows up at the White House and Barron's thrilled, and I'm sure a lot of people were really thrilled, and he plays on the Saudi team, I think is what it is, right? Yeah. He plays on the Saudi team these days, so he's there. There's JD Vance, a bunch of other people, and Usha's there, and it's very exciting, and everyone's having a blast. Everyone's having a blast at the dinner, but I imagine they all have tuxedos like in their offices. When Donald Trump is the president and you're going to have all of these benefits and galas and things going on, you probably just need a tux. You probably hang it in your office, or somebody, you have aides, probably they can go and get it for you. Somebody can run to your house and get your tux or buy you one from, from Roberto Cavalli, wherever you need to go to get your tuxedo done. And when the ballroom is done, man, they're just going to be living in tuxedos. By the way, Jamie Raskin, again, who's just like the worst person in the entire world. Jamie Raskin said that if the Republicans lose the White House, they're going to tear down Donald Trump's ballroom. Okay? Donald Trump building a ballroom at the White House with his own money, with money from personal private investors who these are all very wealthy people. These are all people who have helped the United States of America, have built companies and built jobs and paid taxes and all this other kind of stuff. They've cut big fat checks to build a ballroom, $300 million now to build this ballroom. Donald Trump's going to build it. It's something that all the presidents have wanted. Whenever there were events before, they had tents and porta potties, and it was disgusting. And Donald Trump said, this is ridiculous. Why don't we have a ballroom? Let's build one. Let's tear down this East Wing and build one up. Well, the Democrats are so angry that Donald Trump is improving the White House. They're so angry that he's going all property brothers on the East Wing, that they're threatening to tear it down if they win. They're running on tearing down the ballroom. Okay. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? This is NBC News. If Democrats regain the White House, Trump's ballroom could be an early casualty. From tearing it down to making it a museum for the study of corruption and autocracy, Democrats pitch alternative uses for President Donald Trump's beloved ballroom. The East Wing that President Donald Trump tore down last month stood for decades. The ballroom he's building in its place could be gone not long after the first wave of guests sit down for dinner, depending on the outcome of the 2028 presidential race. If elected, a Democrat president would have plenty to worry about aside from White House decor, war, and peace can easily fill up a day. But a new president may face considerable pressure from within the Democrat fold to do something about a massive new ballroom forever linked to Trump. Think about it. That's the key. That's the key link there. They don't care that there's going to be a ballroom. They care that it will forever be linked to Trump. And they don't want anything linked to Trump on their White House if they're back in power. Already, prominent Democratic officials are workshopping ideas for repurposing the space in favor of something that's decidedly un-Trump. If any of these come to fruition, the $300 million ballroom that Trump birthed could take on a function that he never intended. Should the ballroom be used as the president plans? No way, said Representative Jamie Raskin from Maryland, who said he will consider a presidential bid if Democrats gain control of the House in the upcoming midterm elections. This is a space that's owned by the people and that serves the people. So it should be used opposite of what Trump has in mind, which is for the American aristocracy and plutocracy to gather. Representative Ro Khanna of California, another Democrat viewed as a potential presidential candidate, said the ballroom should be used in a way that, quote, celebrates and empowers forgotten Americans, as opposed to accommodating guests for glitzy state dinners. Letting the 90,000 square foot structure remain a ballroom would only validate the means by which Trump built it, demolishing the East Wing without forewarning. At least one Democrat lawmaker wants the ballroom to meet its demise. I don't think it would be a bad idea to tear it down, said Steve Cohen from Tennessee. It's this gigantic blob that's Donald Trump, he added. So the Democrats are so just annoyed, so infatuated with hate for President Donald Trump that he's going to build a brand new, beautiful, state-of-the-art, privately funded ballroom. Not with taxpayer dollars, but with money that was donated to the United States of America by patriotic citizens. He's going to build something that is utilitarian, that adds to the value and the prestige of the United States of America and the Capitol and the presidency, something the Democrats could use, but because it was Donald Trump's idea and because Donald Trump's the one who built it, Donald Trump, they want to tear it down, and they want no memory of President Donald Trump at all. They're taking out their anger on President Donald Trump on inanimate objects. That's just, you know what? It's shocking and also not at all shocking. Not at all shocking. Listen, I have a lot more to talk about. And luckily tonight I'm hosting a rally. If you're in the Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida area, or if you can get to the Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida area, guess what? We're going to be at Pusser's Bar and Grill. And Pusser's Bar and Grill is right there. It's named after a rum by the same name. It's right there off of A1A. You can't miss it. It's a beautiful night. The weather's going to be amazing. We're going to have yard signs. So if you'd like to come get a Mark K for Congress yard sign, you can come and get a Mark K for Congress yard sign. If you would like to If you would like to get a hat, we have some hats left. I believe we're going to be selling hats and other merchandise. If you want to come out and party and make a donation, I'll be giving a speech. And thanks to John Rutherford, I will have a lot to talk about today, and why we need change in the district, and why we need change in Washington, D.C., and why I am the perfect person to bring that change, at least for this portion of Florida. Pusser's Bar and Grill. You can go to my Facebook page. In fact, it looks like, there's a bunch of people that already responded and are coming tonight. But bring your friends, bring your family, come on out, get some food, get some drinks. Like I said, it's going to be a beautiful evening. And you can get all the information on my Facebook page. I believe maybe there's a link. I think there's probably a link as well. Somewhere on this page, so you can get to it pretty quickly. But that is tonight, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be at Pusser's Bar and Grill. We can't wait to see you there. Look at this. We're getting a late, looks like a super chat from YouTube from Mariah. Wow. Mariah dropping $20 and saying, such amazing amount of incredible and high-powered businesses, relationships taking place. Very exciting. Mariah, thank you so much for that super chat. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your comment. You're right. A lot of business, a lot of incredibly powerful relationships taking place, and we all get to benefit because we put the right man in the White House, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much. That is definitely something that we appreciate your generosity. We appreciate everyone's generosity. And if you can't subscribe, or if you can't make a donation to the campaign, or if you can't send a super chat, don't worry. I mean, you can always subscribe. Everyone can subscribe. It's free. Make sure you're listening to this podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. Make sure that you are downloading this podcast every single day. Make sure that you are watching on YouTube. Make sure that you hit that little ding-a-ling, the little bell, so that you get the information we post whenever we post it. And make sure you tune in each and every day so that you can get informed. You can stay entertained. You can stay inspired, invigorated, enlightened, and excited to continue to fight so we can save the Republic. I will see you tonight at Pusser's Bar and Grill, A1A in Ponte Vedra. Again, all the information on my market